You're mine, only mine. Oliver's voice still echoed in my ears, and the mark on my neck was proof that I had lived the biggest lie of my life. I had always considered myself an alpha. My entire existence was built around that identity: strength, control, dominance. But that night, when Oliver sank his teeth into my neck and forced a deep, painful bond upon me, I realized I was never an alpha. I was an omega, and now I was bound to him forever. The pain was still fresh. I sat on my bedroom floor, hands covering my neck as if hiding the mark would make everything normal again. But nothing was normal. Something inside me had changed, something deep, something biological. I could still smell him, as if he were right beside me. That sharp scent of pine and leather had seeped into my blood. My hatred and my helplessness boiled together inside me. Everything happened so suddenly that I couldn't even process what had been done to me. My breathing was rapid and my heart pounded so hard it felt like someone had shaken my entire world. "What did you do?" I had screamed at him when he pulled away. His lips stained with blood, my blood. His eyes were cold and possessive, as if he had done nothing wrong. "I saved you," he had said, his voice devoid of any remorse. "Now you can't belong to anyone else." I kept replaying that moment in my mind. At the party, the lights were dim and I was with my friends. Oliver had been watching me from a distance, the way he always did. I knew he was interested in me, but I never imagined he would go this far. When I stepped outside for some fresh air, he cornered me. His grip was so strong I couldn't even move. "I can't lose you, Maurice," he had said, and then he drove his teeth into my gland. That pain, I could never forget it. It wasn't just physical. It reached into my soul. The bond had formed, and now I was attached to him chemically, emotionally, permanently. I ran home, hoping it was all just a bad dream. But when I looked at my neck in the mirror, that deep, bleeding bite mark, reality hit me like a hammer. I belonged to Oliver now, whether I wanted it or not. My phone kept buzzing with messages, all from Oliver. "Are you okay? I'm coming to see you. I know you're angry, but please understand, Maurice. I can't live without you." Each message fueled my rage even more. I threw my phone across the room, but even the sound of it shattering didn't ease my restlessness. I knew this was just the beginning from now on. My life was in Oliver's control, and there was nothing I could do about it. I stayed awake all night trying to accept this new reality. But every time I touched my neck, the pain reminded me that some things could never be undone. My entire identity had been stripped away in a single moment. Everyone saw me as an alpha: my family, my friends, everyone at college. What would happen if they found out the truth? How could I face them knowing I was living a lie? The worst part wasn't just the physical bond. It was the way my body betrayed me. I could feel Oliver even when he wasn't near. His scent lingered in my senses, pulling me toward him against my will. My omega instincts were awakening, and I hated every second of it. I had spent my whole life believing I was dominant, strong, in control. Now I was being forced into submission by biology itself. I thought about the party again. I had been laughing with my friends, completely unaware that my life was about to change forever. Oliver had been lurking in the shadows, watching me with those intense eyes. I should have noticed the warning signs. The way he always appeared wherever I went. The way he looked at me like I was something precious he needed to protect or possess. When he dragged me outside, I tried to fight back, but his alpha strength overpowered me easily. "You don't understand, Maurice," he had whispered against my ear. "Someone else was going to claim you tonight. I saw the way that alpha was looking at you. I couldn't let that happen." Then came the bite, sharp and brutal, sealing my fate. Now I was trapped. The bond wasn't just a mark on my skin, it was a chain wrapped around my entire being. I could feel Oliver's emotions bleeding into mine. His obsession, his possessiveness, his twisted sense of love. It made me sick. But at the same time, some primal part of me, the omega part I never knew existed, craved his presence. I looked at the broken phone on the floor. His messages were probably still coming through. Part of me wanted to read them, to understand why he did this. But the larger part of me wanted to run as far away as possible. Except I knew running was pointless. The bond would pull me back. It always would. My hands trembled as I stood up and walked to the bathroom. I needed to see the mark again, to confirm this nightmare was real. Under the harsh bathroom light, The bite looked even worse. The skin around it was red and swollen, the puncture marks deep and deliberate. This wasn't an accidental claiming. Oliver had known exactly what he was doing. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to calm down. But my reflection in the mirror showed someone I didn't recognize. My eyes looked different, more vulnerable, more afraid. The confident alpha persona I had worn like armor for years was cracking, revealing the omega underneath. How long had I been suppressing my true nature? Had I always been an omega, or did Oliver's bite somehow transform me? The questions swirled in my mind with no answers. All I knew was that tomorrow I would have to face the world again. I would have to pretend everything was fine while hiding this devastating secret. I would have to see Oliver and resist the pull of the bond that now connected us. As dawn began to break through my window, I finally collapsed onto my bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Oliver's face, those dark, determined eyes that had looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered in the world. It terrified me how much power he now had over my life. The bond hummed beneath my skin, a constant reminder of what I had lost and what I had been forced to become. I wasn't Maurice the Alpha anymore. I was Maurice the Omega, claimed and bound to someone I didn't choose. And somehow, I would have to find a way to survive this new reality. "What are you doing here?" The next morning when I stood at my door, Oliver was right there in front of me, acting as if he had every right to be there. There was no shame on his face. No guilt, just a calm, determined expression that made me even more furious. I tried to close the door, but he placed his hand in the way. "We need to talk," he said, his voice completely steady. "I have nothing to say to you," I replied, my voice shaking. I wanted him to understand what he had done to me. But Oliver simply stepped inside as if this were his home. His presence filled the entire room. His scent was still so strong that it triggered my omega instincts. This disturbed me more than anything else. My own body was betraying me, pulling me toward him while my mind completely refused. "Maurice, listen to me." Oliver closed the door and approached me. "I know you're upset, but you need to understand that I did this for you." "For me?" I laughed bitterly, though that laugh was filled with pain. "You forced a bond on me. You didn't give me any choice." My hands were trembling, and I wanted to push him away, but when I touched him, a strange current ran through my entire body. The bond's effect, it was physically attracting me to him, no matter how much I mentally resisted. Oliver grabbed my hand. "That alpha was gonna claim you at the party. He had his eyes on you. If I hadn't marked you first, he would have done it. I saved you, Maurice." His eyes were intense as they stared into mine, as if he were telling the truth. But what kind of saving was this? This was imprisonment. "So you decided to make me yours without asking?" My voice cracked. "I'm an alpha, Oliver. Or I was." Saying that last part made my throat tighten. My identity had been stolen. Everyone thought of me as an alpha, my family, friends, everyone at college. What would happen if this truth came out? Oliver cupped my face in his hands. "You were never an alpha, Maurice. You were always an omega. Your body was just suppressing it. I simply brought out your true identity. And now you're mine." His touch grazed my gland lightly, and against my will I let out a soft gasp. This bond was making me weak, and I began to hate myself for it. "Get out of here," I said, but my voice lacked the strength it should have had. Oliver looked at me for a second, then stepped back. "All right," he said. "But remember this, Maurice, this bond is permanent now. Wherever you go, you'll feel me. And when your first heat cycle comes, you'll need me." With those words, he opened the door and left, leaving me alone. I stood there, his words spinning in my mind. Heat cycle? That meant I really was an omega now. Sooner or later, I would have to face him again. Just thinking about it made my heart heavy, because I knew Oliver was right. The bond had connected us in a way that could never be broken. After he left, I sank onto my couch, burying my face in my hands. How did my life spiral out of control so quickly? Just days ago, I was living normally, believing I knew who I was. Now everything had been turned upside down. The worst part was that I could still smell Oliver in my apartment. His scent clung to everything, marking his territory even in his absence. I needed to think clearly, but the bond made that almost impossible. Every thought circled back to him. I wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he was thinking about me too. These weren't my thoughts. They were the bond forcing me to care about someone I should despise. I pulled out my laptop, desperate for distraction. Maybe I could research bonds between alphas and omegas, find some way to break this connection. But as I scrolled through articles and forums, my hope crumbled. Every source said the same thing. Once a bond is formed, especially through a claiming bite, it's irreversible. The only way to sever it would be through death. My stomach churned at that thought. Was I really stuck with Oliver forever? Would I ever have control over my own life again? The questions felt suffocating. I slammed the laptop shut and stood up, pacing around my small apartment like a caged animal. The rational part of my brain tried to analyze the situation. Oliver claimed he was protecting me from another alpha. Was that true, or just an excuse for his possessive behavior? I remembered the party more clearly now. There had been someone watching me, a tall guy with cold eyes who made me uncomfortable. But did that justify what Oliver did? Forcing a permanent bond without consent? My phone, now cracked from when I threw it, lit up with another message. I picked it up carefully, seeing Oliver's name on the screen. I know you hate me right now, but everything I do is because I love you. Please try to understand. Love? He called this love. This was obsession, possession, control. Love didn't trap someone. Love didn't take away their choices. I typed out a furious response but deleted it before sending. What was the point? Words wouldn't change what had already happened. The bond was real, permanent, and nothing I said would make Oliver undo it. Instead, I turned off my phone and threw it in a drawer, out of sight. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't do anything except think about the impossible situation I was in. As evening approached, I felt a strange warmth spreading through my body. At first, I thought I was getting sick, but then I remembered Oliver's warning about heat cycles. No, it was too soon for that, wasn't it? I didn't know anything about being an omega. I had never needed to know before. Panic started to set in as the warmth intensified. My skin felt sensitive and that pull toward Oliver grew stronger. I grabbed my jacket and decided I needed to get out, clear my head, do something to fight against these new instincts taking over my body. But as I reached for the door handle, I hesitated. What if Oliver was out there, waiting? What if he could sense what was happening to me through the bond? The thought of facing him again so soon made me retreat back into my apartment. I was trapped in my own home, prisoner to a bond I never wanted, slowly transforming into someone I didn't recognize. Maurice, are you okay? You've been acting strange lately. 2 days later, when I went to college, my best friend Mila was watching me in the cafeteria with concerned eyes. I had been trying for days to make sure nobody noticed something was wrong with me. But hiding my neck with scarves and constantly being guarded, all of this looked suspicious. Yeah, I'm fine, I said, forcing a smile. But inside I was falling apart. I constantly felt Oliver's presence, as if he were observing me from a distance. And he actually was. I had seen him several times around campus, watching me, sometimes from around hallway corners, sometimes outside library windows. This was his obsession, which had become even more intense because of the bond. Wherever I went, he was there. Hey, since when did you start wearing scarves? Mila asked, reaching toward my neck. I jerked my hand up and stopped her. Just sore throat, I lied. But Mila wasn't convinced. Maurice, if there's a problem, tell me. You're my best friend. I wanted to tell her everything, that I was actually an omega, that Oliver had forced a bond on me, that my entire life had become a lie. But how could I explain? People respected me as an alpha. If the truth came out, I would lose my place from the football team, from my social circle, from everything. Just then, Oliver entered the cafeteria. His gaze went straight to me. My heartbeat accelerated, and that uncomfortable pull started again. My body wanted to go to him. Mila noticed and said, "Isn't that the guy you used to like?" Oliver? I quickly denied it. No, I don't even know him. But Oliver was walking straight toward my table. Mila looked confused. "Seems like he knows you," she said. Oliver stopped beside me, hands in his pockets, dangerously calm. "Maurice, I need to talk to you. Now." "I'm busy," I said without looking at him. but he grabbed my wrist. A jolt went through me from his touch and I yanked my hand back. Mila was shocked. "Excuse me? Who are you?" she asked Oliver in a defensive tone. Oliver ignored Mila and looked at me. "Maurice, this is important. Your temperature is rising. Can't you feel it?" He said this so quietly that only I could hear. My eyes widened. He was right. I did feel strange. My body was heating up. Was this what I thought it was? Heat? No. Not now. I wasn't ready for this. I have to go," I said. And without thinking, I ran from there. Both Mila and Oliver were left behind. But I didn't look back. I needed to get to my dorm room, lock myself in, and figure out what was happening to me. But when I reached my room, the temperature had increased even more. My body was sweating, and I felt a strange craving for Oliver. This was the bond's effect, and it was torturing me. I locked the door and sat on the floor, breathing heavily. I knew this was just the beginning. My first heat was coming, and I couldn't deal with it alone. Every minute that passed made the pain worse. It started as a dull ache in my lower abdomen, then spread throughout my entire body like fire. My clothes felt too tight, too hot against my skin. I stripped down to just my underwear, but it didn't help. The heat was coming from inside me, burning through every nerve ending. I stumbled to my bed and collapsed onto it, curling into a ball. This couldn't be happening. I had always been strong, always in control. Now I was reduced to this, a writhing mess, completely at the mercy of biology. The omega part of me that Oliver had awakened was taking over, and I was powerless to stop it. Through the haze of pain and heat, I heard my phone ringing from where I had left it in the drawer. It had to be Oliver. He could probably sense what was happening to me through the bond. Part of me wanted to answer it, to beg him to come help me. But my pride kept me frozen on the bed. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. I wouldn't prove him right. But as the heat intensified, pride seemed less important than survival. My body was screaming for an alpha, specifically for Oliver, the one who had claimed me. Every instinct I had was focused on one thing: getting him here, having him close, letting him ease this unbearable burning. I bit down on my pillow to muffle the sounds escaping my throat. I didn't want my neighbors to hear. I didn't want anyone to know what was happening behind my locked door. But staying quiet became harder as waves of heat crashed over me, each one stronger than the last. Time lost all meaning. Minutes felt like hours. I drifted in and out of consciousness, my body alternating between burning hot and shaking cold. At some point, I became aware of someone pounding on my door. Oliver's voice cut through the fog in my mind. "Maurice, open the door. I know you're in there." I wanted to answer, but I couldn't form words. My throat was too dry, my mind too scattered. All I could do was lie there and endure the torture my own body was putting me through. This was what being an omega meant. Complete vulnerability, total dependence on an alpha during heat. Everything I had been taught to value, strength, independence, control, meant nothing now. The pounding on the door grew more insistent. "Maurice, please. You can't go through this alone. The bond is making it worse for you." Oliver's voice had an edge of panic I'd never heard before. "If you don't let me in, I'll break down this door." Some distant part of my brain registered that he probably would do exactly that. Oliver had already proven he would do anything when it came to me, regardless of boundaries or consent. The irony wasn't lost on me. The person causing my suffering was the only one who could end it. My hand reached out weakly toward the door, even though I was too far away to actually reach it. My body had made the decision my mind refused to make. I needed Oliver, needed him with an intensity that terrified me. The heat was winning, overriding every logical thought, every ounce of resistance. And the worst part was knowing this was only the beginning. If this bond was permanent, I would go through this again and again. Always needing him, always dependent on the man who had stolen my choice and changed my life forever. "Open the door, Maurice. I know you need me." Oliver's voice came from outside my dorm, and I was curled up on the floor inside. The first wave of heat had hit me, and it was more painful than any torture imaginable. My entire body was burning, every nerve ending aching with a sensation that desperately wanted to be satisfied. Only by Oliver. This was biology's cruelty. The bond had permanently attached me to him, and now during heat, my body would only accept him. No, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to show him my weakness. I didn't want him to win. But the pain kept increasing. My eyes were closing, breathing was becoming difficult, and I felt like I might pass out. Maurice, please, Oliver said again. There was desperation in his voice that I had never heard before. You're hurting yourself. Let me in. I knew he was right. Omegas cannot survive heat without their bonded alpha. Biology's rules were not in my hands. Crying, I got up from the floor and went to the door. My hand was on the lock, but I couldn't open it. I was so afraid if I opened this door I would lose permanently. But then another wave came, so intense that I fell to the ground, clutching my stomach. A scream escaped me. Oliver pounded on the door hard. Maurice. He said it with such panic that it seemed like he would break down the door. And then he did exactly that. One forceful push, and the door flew open. Oliver came inside, and as soon as I felt his scent, pine and leather, my body automatically relaxed. He came to me and lifted me from the floor. You needed me, he said, holding me in his arms. Why did you keep me outside? My eyes were filled with tears. Because I hate you, I whispered. Oliver placed me on the bed and touched my face. Hate me, Maurice. But I will never let you go. Then he brought his gland close to mine, and his scent released an alpha's calming pheromone that gives stability to an omega in heat. My body responded instantly. The pain lessened somewhat, and I took a breath of relief. You need to let me completely claim you, Oliver said, his eyes searching for my permission. That's the only way your pain will end. I knew this was true, but accepting it was so difficult. I had grown up thinking I was an alpha-dominant strong, and now I was in an omega's role. Submissive, dependent. All right, I finally said, because I had no choice. Oliver bit me again, but this time it was more gentle, a proper claiming bite that completes the bond. Along with the pain came a strange comfort. My heartbeat slowed. My body accepted it, and for the first time I felt that the bond wasn't just a curse. It was something else too. Now you're completely mine, Oliver whispered, touching his forehead to mine. And I, helpless and exhausted, just fell asleep in his arms. When I woke up hours later, the heat had subsided to a manageable level. Oliver was still there, sitting beside me on the bed, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't triumph or satisfaction. It was something softer, almost tender, that scared me more than his possessiveness ever had. How do you feel? He asked quietly, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. The gesture was so gentle, so caring, that I almost forgot how we got here. Almost like I've been run over by a truck, I admitted, my voice hoarse. My throat was dry. My body ached in places I didn't know could ache. But the burning fire that had consumed me earlier was gone, replaced by a strange emptiness. Oliver reached for a water bottle on the nightstand and helped me sit up to drink. I hated how natural it felt, having him take care of me like this. I hated how my body leaned into his touch automatically, seeking comfort from the very person who had destroyed my life. The worst is over for now, he said, setting the bottle aside. But heat cycles last 3 to 5 days. You'll have more waves, though they won't be as intense as the first one. 3 to 5 days. I closed my eyes at the thought. 3 to 5 days of being completely dependent on him, of my body betraying every logical thought in my head. I can't do this, I said, more to myself than to him. I can't be this person. You're not becoming a different person, Maurice. Oliver said firmly. You're finally becoming who you always were. The suppressants your body naturally produced were hiding your true nature. Now you're free. Free? I laughed bitterly. You call this freedom? Being chained to you? Needing you just to survive my own biology? His jaw tightened. I didn't create the bond system, Maurice. I didn't make the rules that govern our kinds. I just made sure you wouldn't be claimed by someone who would actually hurt you. And you think you haven't hurt me? I shot back. You took away my choice. You decided my entire future without asking me. Yes, I did. His voice rose, frustration finally breaking through his calm exterior. Because if I had waited, if I had asked, you would have said no. You would have kept living a lie, kept suppressing who you are until it killed you. Do you have any idea how dangerous it is for an omega to suppress their nature for as long as you did? Another year, maybe two, and your body would have started breaking down. I stared at him, not wanting to believe it but seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. You're lying. I'm not. He pulled out his phone and showed me several medical articles about suppressed omegas, the health complications, the mortality rates. My hands shook as I scrolled through them. I've been researching this since the moment I realized what you were. I've been trying to figure out how to help you, how to make you see the truth before it was too late. So you decided to assault me at a party and force a permanent bond? My voice cracked. That was your solution? It wasn't planned, he said quietly. I was going to talk to you, try to make you understand gradually. But then I saw Daniel watching you. I saw the way he was waiting for his chance. He's not like me, Maurice. He collects omegas like trophies. If he had claimed you first, Oliver's hands clenched into fists. I couldn't let that happen. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to hold on to my rage, because it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. But exhaustion was pulling at me, and another small wave of heat was beginning to build. I could feel it in the way my skin started to warm, in the way my body instinctively moved closer to Oliver. I still hate you, I whispered, even as I let him pull me back into his arms. This doesn't change anything. I know, he said, his voice soft against my hair. But I'd rather have your hatred and know you're safe, than have your approval and lose you to someone who would break you. As I drifted off to sleep again, I realized with growing horror that part of me was starting to understand his twisted logic. And that scared me more than anything else that had happened. You need to tell your family, Maurice. The next morning when I woke up, Oliver was sitting on the bed beside me, watching me. Hearing those words felt like someone had placed a weight on my chest. No, I said immediately, pulling myself away from his arms. I can't tell my parents. They won't understand. My family was traditional. Alphas were made into leaders, while omegas, they were given protective roles. They were valued but not respected, the same way alphas were. My brother was an alpha, and I had always been seen as his competition. If they found out I was actually an omega, they would look at me differently. I couldn't bear that look. Maurice, your secondary gender can't be hidden anymore, Oliver said, taking my hand. Heat cycles will come. Your scent has changed. People will notice. It's better if you tell them yourself instead of letting someone else discover it. I knew he was right, but I didn't have the courage. Give me some time, I said. Oliver nodded, but his eyes said that time was running out. He pulled me into his arms, and I rested my head on his chest. It was so strange. Just days ago, I hated him more than anyone, and now I was finding comfort in his touch. You know, Maurice, Oliver said slowly, the first time I saw you, I knew you were an omega. Your scent was suppressed, but my alpha instincts recognized it. I've been obsessed with you since then. I looked at him in shock. You knew beforehand? I asked. And you didn't tell me? Because you weren't ready, he said. You thought of yourself as an alpha, and I didn't want to shatter that illusion. But when that alpha targeted you at the party, I had no choice. I couldn't watch you be with someone else. I should have been angry hearing this, but I felt something else, as if in a twisted way Oliver had protected me. You're obsessed, I said. This is obsession, not love. Oliver smiled, but it was a dark smile. Maybe, but it doesn't matter now, because you're mine, and I will never let you go. The declaration should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a confusing warmth through my chest that I immediately tried to suppress. I couldn't afford to develop feelings for someone who had taken my choice away. That would be the ultimate betrayal of myself. What happens when the heat is over? I asked, changing the subject. Do you just leave and wait for the next cycle? Is that how this works? Oliver's expression darkened. Is that what you want? For me to leave? I want my life back, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, they felt hollow. What life? The one where I was living a lie. The one where I pretended to be something I wasn't. Your life isn't over, Maurice. It's just different now. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. And no, I'm not leaving. The bond means we're connected permanently. Where you go, I go. What affects you affects me. We're in this together whether you like it or not. I don't like it, I said stubbornly, but my body was already relaxing into his touch again. The bond was doing its work, making me crave his presence even when my mind screamed against it. You will, he said with absolute certainty. Give it time. Later that day, I managed to convince Oliver to let me shower alone. I needed space, needed to think without his overwhelming presence, clouding my judgment. Under the hot water, I examined the mark on my neck. It had healed somewhat, but it would always be there, a permanent reminder of the night everything changed. I thought about my family, about what I would say to them. How do you explain that everything they believed about you was wrong? That their alpha son was actually an omega? That he had been claimed by someone they'd never even met? My phone rang just as I was getting dressed. It was my mother. My heart jumped into my throat as I stared at her name on the screen. Oliver appeared in the doorway, somehow sensing my distress through the bond. "Answer it," he said gently. "You can't avoid them forever." With trembling hands, I accepted the call. "Hi, Mom." "Maurice, sweetheart, we haven't heard from you in days. Is everything all right?" Her voice was warm and concerned, and it made my chest tighten with guilt. "Yeah, everything's fine. Just been busy with classes." The lie came easily, too easily. "Well, your father and I were thinking of coming to visit this weekend. We'd love to take you out to dinner, maybe meet some of your friends." She paused. "You sound strange, honey. Are you sure you're okay?" This was it. The moment I could tell her the truth, or keep living the lie. I looked at Oliver, who was watching me with those intense eyes, and suddenly I knew what I had to do. "Actually, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Something important." My voice shook, but I pushed forward. "I'm not an alpha, I'm an omega. I've always been one, but my body was suppressing it, and I've been bonded." The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear my mother's sharp intake of breath, could imagine the shock on her face. "Maurice, what are you talking about? That's not possible. You were tested when you were younger." "The tests were wrong," I interrupted. "Or maybe my body was suppressing it even then. But Mom, it's true. I'm an omega. And I've been claimed by my bonded alpha." "Who?" Her voice had gone cold, protective. "Who did this to you?" Oliver stepped forward and gently took the phone from my hand. "Mrs. Chen, my name is Oliver Cross. I'm Maurice's bonded alpha. I know this is a shock, but I want you to know that I care deeply for your son and I will protect him with my life." I couldn't hear what my mother was saying, but from Oliver's expression it wasn't pleasant. He handled it calmly though, answering her questions with patience. I didn't know he possessed. Finally, he handed the phone back to me. "Maurice," my mother's voice was tight with emotion. "Your father and I are coming tomorrow. We need to meet this Oliver and understand what's happened. But sweetie, no matter what, we love you. That hasn't changed." Tears I'd been holding back finally fell. "Thanks, Mom." After I hung up, Oliver pulled me into his arms. For the first time since the bond was formed, I hugged him back, not because the bond demanded it, but because I needed the comfort. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step toward accepting this new reality. "I did something for you." A few days later, Oliver was in my dorm room with an envelope in his hand. I was sitting on the bed, lost in my thoughts. The past few days had exhausted me, physically, emotionally, mentally. I looked at him, waiting for whatever new twist he was about to bring into my life. He handed me the envelope. "What is this?" I asked suspiciously. "Open it and see," he said. I opened the envelope and inside was a letter. A medical document confirming that my secondary gender had been officially registered as Omega and my bonded alpha's name was listed. Oliver Cross. You had this officially registered?" I asked in shock. Oliver nodded. "Yes. Because this is reality now, Maurice. The sooner you accept it, the better." I threw the document aside. "You had no right to do this," I shouted. "You want to control everything." "Yes." Oliver raised his voice too. "Because if I don't, you'll destroy your own life. You're living in denial, Maurice. You'll keep pretending everything is fine until someone else hurts you." We were both staring at each other, both breathing hard. Then Oliver softened his tone and came closer. "I don't want to hurt you. I just want to protect you." "This isn't protection, Oliver," I said, my eyes filling with tears. "This is possession. You want to own me." Oliver grabbed my face. "Yes, I want to own you. Because I love you, Maurice." This was the first time he had used that word. My heart stopped for a second. "Love? Was this love?" "This isn't love," I said, but there was doubt in my voice. Oliver touched his forehead to mine. Then what is it? If I just wanted to own you, I would have left you alone here. But I'm here every day with you. Because I don't want to live without you. I didn't know what to answer. My heart was confused. Did I hate him or was I falling in love with him? The bond had blurred everything. I need time to think, I finally said. Oliver nodded and gave me a soft kiss on the forehead. I'll wait for you, Maurice. However long it takes. But even as he said it, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched. Oliver wasn't as patient as he pretended to be. The obsession that drove him to claim me in the first place was still there, simmering beneath the surface. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my future. If I accepted Oliver, would my life always be under his control? But if I left him, could I survive the pain of the bond and the loneliness? My body had already gotten used to him. His scent, his touch, his presence. I got up and went to the window, looking out at the dark campus. Somewhere out there, other Omegas were living with their alphas, some in loving relationships, others in arrangements like mine. How many of them had been given a choice? How many had their bonds forced upon them? My phone buzzed. A text from Mila. Are you okay? Haven't seen you in days. People are starting to ask questions. I typed back quickly. I'm fine. Just dealing with some personal stuff. I'll explain soon. But would I? Could I really explain to everyone that I wasn't who they thought I was? That the confident, strong Maurice they knew was just a mask hiding my true nature? The next morning, my parents arrived earlier than expected. I heard the knock on my door and my stomach dropped. Oliver was in the bathroom, and I considered not telling him they were here, but the bond betrayed me. He emerged immediately, somehow sensing my anxiety. They're here? He asked. I nodded, unable to speak. He straightened his shirt and took my hand. We'll face them together. When I opened the door, my mother's eyes immediately went to our joined hands, then to the mark on my neck that was visible despite my attempt to cover it. My father stood behind her, his face unreadable. Mom, Dad, this is Oliver, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. My mother pushed past me and went straight to Oliver. For a moment I thought she might slap him. Instead, she studied him intensely, then turned to me. Is this what you want, Maurice? Because if he forced you, if you're in danger— He didn't force me, I lied, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Oliver's hand tightened on mine, whether in warning or gratitude, I couldn't tell. I accepted the bond. My father finally spoke. Maurice, come take a walk with me. Alone. Oliver's jaw clenched, clearly not wanting to let me out of his sight. But he nodded. As I walked away with my father, I felt the bond stretching between us. Uncomfortable but not painful. We walked in silence for several minutes before my father said, "Tell me the truth, all of it," and I did. I told him about the party, about Oliver's obsession, about how he claimed me without permission. I told him about discovering I was an Omega, about the heat cycle, about everything. My father listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Do you want to leave him? Because we can help you. There are ways to break even a forced bond, though they're dangerous." The question hung in the air. Did I want to leave Oliver? A week ago, the answer would have been an immediate yes. But now, with the bond fully formed, with my body craving his presence, with the strange feelings developing in my chest, I don't know, I admitted. Part of me hates him for what he did, but another part of me understands why he did it. And the bond makes it so complicated. My father put his hand on my shoulder. The bond will influence your feelings, Maurice. Don't let it make you think you love someone who hurt you. You deserve better than that. When we returned, my mother was talking intensely with Oliver. They both looked up as we approached. "Maurice," my mother said, "Oliver has told me everything. About the other alpha at the party. About your suppressed nature. About his feelings for you." She paused. "I don't approve of how this happened, but I can see he cares for you. The question is, what do you want?" All eyes turned to me. Oliver's gaze was intense, pleading silently for me to choose him. My parents looked concerned but supportive, and I stood there caught between the life I thought I had and the reality I was being forced to accept. I started, then stopped. What did I want? I want time to figure out who I am now, what I feel, whether this bond is real or just biology, and I need Oliver to give me that space. Oliver looked like I had struck him, but he nodded slowly. I'll give you space, but I'm not leaving completely. The bond won't allow it anyway. My mother seemed satisfied with this compromise. Then we'll check in regularly. Maurice and Oliver, you'll answer to us if anything happens to our son. As my parents left, Oliver and I stood in my dorm room, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. Thank you, he finally said, for not asking them to take you away. Don't thank me yet, I replied. I haven't decided anything. This is just the beginning of figuring out what happens next. But as I said it, I knew that whatever happened, our lives were intertwined now. The bond had seen to that, and whether it was love or obsession, acceptance or resignation, I would have to find my own path through this new reality, one day at a time.